All right, that's better. Much better.
All right. Hey guys, what's going on, guys? Again, this is Doniel Lovely with another episode of the Tax Talk Tuesday with Doniel. I'm here with a special guest. This is Miss our attorney, our tax attorney, the one and only Josie Walton. How you doing, Miss Josie?
I'm good. How are you?
Awesome, awesome. We would love to thank you for joining us on the Tax Talk Tuesday with Donnell, and actually pouring into our community, and which are valuable. A lot of us are in the tax profession industry, and so what we want to do is we want to make sure that we stay in compliance. Right? We don't want to have to deal with the IRS on our own self because a lot of us don't. I mean, a lot of taxpayers really don't know that IRS not only audits tax preparers, but they all are tax professionals, right? And we want to
Yes,
make sure we
yes,
stay in compliance and do our due diligence so now we can serve our client at a higher level as well as being compliant with the IRS. So that's kind of what we want to talk about. But for people that don't know who you are, can you give us a little bit of background about yourself?
yes. I am Josie Harris Walton. I am the Tax Pros attorney. My practice mostly is representing tax professionals against due diligence issues as well as tax fraud. Also, I deal with a little bit of PPP loans, EIDLs. I am the partner in the Walton firm as well as the CEO of Tax Pro Concierge. But my main focus is tax professionals. So that's kind of what I do.
Absolutely. And what do you do for the tax pros? You help us get in compliance?
Yes, I help you get in compliance and stay in compliance. So pretty much, and that's because I see so much of it with tax professionals is they want to do right, but some of them just don't know. So
Right.
my theme for next year, 2023, is no due diligence penalties. That is my
There you
theme.
go.
So that's
There
why
you
I'm
go.
working so hard and getting out here and letting people know about the due diligence process and about how to stay in compliance with the IRS and as well as the states.
Absolutely, absolutely, and that's very, very important because again, as a business owner, we're out here working, we're out here doing just as much as everybody else, but all now, to have all that money be issued in penalties and interest on us, right? When we're just trying to service our community as well, so that's a big
Yeah.
issue, and we got to pay money back for the hard work we've done.
True. You make those six figures or seven figures, and then they come at you the next year or two with a due diligence penalty. You like, man, I made all this money now. You come at me with this penalty. So that's pretty much my mission. That's my ministry for this year is to make sure everybody stay in compliance with the due diligence.
Absolutely, absolutely. So let's just dive into far as the kind of role that plays in the due diligence process, right? So I know
Mhm.
one issue is documentation, right? That's really big when it comes to being in compliance. So explain a little bit
Yeah.
about what type of documentations that you've seen that gets us in trouble, or what type of documents that we supposed to have we kind of don't have.
Yeah. So what I'm seeing lately is, I mean, I don't think a couple of years ago on the 8867, they didn't have the notes in there, right? But
Right,
now in the due diligence form, there's notes. It says, you can put notes in there. And
right,
what I'm seeing is because when the IRS does an audit on a tax professional, they look at the 8867, the due diligence document, take the form, they look at the audit questionnaire that they're going to do, and then they look at the notes and everything, the documents from the tax professional, according to what they put in for their client, right? And if
correct.
those are not cohesive, they're not the same, they're going to say that you're lying.
Mm,
So my thing is, don't put notes in the due diligence form. Don't do it. You don't
right.
have to. It's not
Okay.
required. So just put
Okay.
your notes in your tax software. That way, if you needed to update anything, like, so let's say, for instance, one of your tax professionals forget to put some notes in there for a client. You can go back and put those notes in there. They may be written down somewhere, but you can put those notes in there because you can change it. Once you send an
Absolutely.
8867 form, what happens? You can't change
Yeah.
anything, right?
No, you can't
So
change nothing.
that right there, if you don't hear nothing else from me, don't put no notes in that due diligence form. Please don't do that, because that's what's hurting people right now is they say, oh, wait a minute, your notes say this in the due diligence form, but your documentation says this. Because they'll say, hey, I
Mm,
got the certificate in there, birth certificate, I got the driver's license, I got the
right.
1098T, I got whatever. And then you look in the doggone folder and none of that stuff is in there.
Wow. Wow. So
And
are
so
they
they're saying,
still
right there.
Wow, 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 wow. So are they still focused on the paper? Like when the people come into you? Because we know we have two ways of doing documents now. We can do it online or we can do it manually still. So is it any preference between the two? Based on
No.
in the compliance efforts?
Well, the IRS is, they're still back in the dinosaur age, so they are doing paper. Well, for the due diligence audits, right? They're still
Right,
asking for paper. So what needs to happen? What they're trying to get away from that. They've now trying to work on getting away from where you can just put from your your notes and your documents, you can just, send them into the IRS on a portal or whatever.
right.
Right. But right now, going forward now, we are doing no we are they're doing documentation, so we have to print out that even if you have it, you can have it electronically formed, you can have
Right.
your client send it to you electronically. But when we get ready to do a due diligence audit, you have to actually print those out, and they have to have hard copies of them. We have to either send them to the IRS, or of course, if they're in there with an audit, they get them from you at that time. So, but the thing is that it's the documentation that is
Mm-hmm.
really hurting people, because you're saying in your notes or whatever or anywhere you're doing this stuff and you're actually not doing it. For instance, situation where um I think was it the lease, right?
Yeah.
Client, and it's not funny, but it's crazy. Client had, said, okay, well, you know what? We have this lease from this client, and they said they have the lease. They had the lease, but guess what? The person said did head of household. The husband was on the lease.
Yeah.
Really? Why?
Right.
Why have a lease when the husband's on the lease? That right there, that's a ding. That's a penalty,
Mm.
because you filed head of household and you have you said that you were separated, but the
You
husband's
said
on the
you
lease.
separate.
You see what I'm saying? That's one documentation you should provide. Provide something else.
Mm.
I don't know what it is, but provide
Right.
something else besides a lease. But things like that is what get us all caught up.
Gotcha. So for us as professionals, as tax professionals, business owners, and as we train in our staff and as we train in our people, what are some of the things that we got to make sure we hone in on and say, okay, when we actually sitting down with a client and we going through our interview questions, our questionnaire, or they doing it online or whatever, their questionnaire, what we need to be putting inside there, or how do we need to make sure that we're doing what we're supposed to do to be in compliance?
I think that it does start with the intake form. Make
Yeah.
sure you have the information on there. Make sure you ask the questions about whether or not, let's say if somebody checked the box and say they get government assistance, the next question
Mm.
you should be asking the intake form is how much. And
Mm.
and therefore, if they tell you how much or whatever, you need to say, okay, you need to include a copy of that in your document, in the portal or wherever you're getting, or you need to provide a copy when you come into the office. So
Right.
when you guys are training, and I know you guys are training your staff very well, because a lot of people are hung on due diligence,
Right.
I recommend auditing a return. Let's take a return. Let's take somebody
Right.
return from last year and let's just audit it. And let's
Right.
see what we're supposed to have in these notes. Because I think when you're seeing things, and when you're seeing it in a perspective, you're saying, okay, why didn't I do that? Why didn't I think about that?
Yeah.
And so I mean, it's really hard. It's not hard to train on due diligence. What's hard is making sure everybody is in compliance in your office, making sure
Yeah.
you stay in compliance. I don't care if it's your mother. I don't care who comes out.
Right.
I don't care if it's their mother. You
Right.
make sure that everybody stays in compliance and everybody uses the same form. Everybody sends out the same form. I don't care if they're not in your office. If they're part of they're your service, you're the service bureau, you're the
Right.
franchise owner. Everybody uses the same thing. This is franchises. You think about Chick-fil-A, right? As
Yeah.
a franchise.
Yeah.
Everybody do the same thing at Chick-fil-A. I
Everything.
don't care if they in Arizona or Georgia. They're doing the same thing at Chick-fil-A. You have to do the same process. And that's what I see a lot of people getting messed up at, because you don't know as a service bureau or as a franchise owner, either as a taxpayer, whether somebody is getting the due diligence out of it, because they're not going to tell you. And you definitely
Exactly.
don't know if they have tax fraud when it
Right.
goes up to tax fraud. So it's about training your people, I think, on the forms, the intake, and what to do. I was at Garrett Cole was talking about in his training one time about how they have someone who actually does the like they do the job forms for them.
Yeah. Job forms.
Somebody
Mhm.
specialize in doing the job forms for them. And if you have somebody do the job forms for you and making sure it's what you need to have in there, I think the questions will automatically say, okay, wait a minute, that's a red flag. So we need
Right.
to ask that additional question, because it's also about probing questions. You're not asking all the appropriate questions. And that's
Gotcha.
another thing.
And I think you said this when we met in the training before. It was you got to be more like an investigator, right? You was telling us about asking all the different questions and say, for instance, if somebody comes saying they're single or they're head of household or whatever, or they're the children. Okay, do you have the birth certificate, the school records? How many, who stayed there? Anybody else stayed there? You know what I'm saying? Like, what other kid? Why you ain't claiming the kid? Like, you got to go into
I
detail.
mean, you pretty much are an investigator, but you know what you are really, to be honest, I tell all preparers that I talk to is that, and professionals, is that you are an auditor.
Yeah,
You unfortunately, you are right now. You guys are auditors. That you are doing the IRS auditor's job pretty
gotcha.
much when it
Right,
comes down to these different credits.
gotcha.
Yep.
And some of the main credits that they really focus on is what?
Earned income tax credit, child tax credit, American Opportunity Tax Credit, and head of household. Which I
Head of
guess
household.
child tax credit, then you have the additional child tax credit, then the other dependent credits. So
Gotcha.
those are the four things. I mean, it's a lot of other things you can have due
Yeah.
diligence, but those are the main things that I see that they focus on: earned income tax credit, child tax credit, American Opportunity Tax Credit, and head of household. Those are
Hmm.
the four main things, and those are the ones that people are getting really bad on.
And for people that don't know, how many penalties they do they get per occurrence? What's the fee?
So
Because I
it's
know it went up.
Yeah, it's well, it they tried to go up 600, but right now as of 2022, it's $545 per failure per tax return per occurrence. So
Five
therefore,
hundred and
it's like,
sixty-six dollars.
yep. So it's
Wow.
like $2,180 if you get all of them wrong. That's per taxpayer
Mm,
per year.
mm,
And so if you're right now, they're doing about 25. Then if the first 25 is 50% of those are wrong, they're gonna put another 25. So
mm.
if you have 50 returns and you have four different compliance issues, due diligence issues, just add that up. That's a lot.
Wow. Yeah,
Lot.
that's 2,000. Yeah. Oh wow. Eight
It's like
thousand
what, a
dollars.
hundred some thousand.
$1,000. Yeah. Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
And
Yep. And
50.
then that not it doesn't stop there. You can get now up to tax fraud, and that's my expertise is criminal tax
Okay.
fraud because 90% of the time when people are having have a tax investigation, it's because of they didn't pass their due diligence.
I got you.
Mm-hmm.
I got
Yep.
you. And
Yep.
so this is what we're talking about now. This is what we're focusing on now is being able to help the tax professionals, not only the professional, but help us help our clients, right? Because we want to make sure that everybody's getting what they earn, right? It's not
Yeah.
like they don't qualify
Yeah.
for these, but we want to make sure that they are being in compliance. They are getting all the credits and deductions that they have according to the
Mm-hmm.
IRS code. And it's
Mm-hmm.
our job to make sure that we're trained and we train our people to help our clients be in
That's
compliance
right.
because again, they're gonna get hit too and we're
Yeah,
gonna get
because
hit. So they
yeah,
get double
they hit
hit.
the client first. They hit the client first. Most of the time they hit
Right.
the client first, and then they come after you because they want to make sure they have a good investigation on you to see if there's a due diligence penalty before they go. Because they're gonna pull a couple of your clients and make sure, and they're gonna say, okay, if they got 10 clients that having the due diligence issue, I'm pretty sure we have about 50 out there. And so we're gonna pull their stuff first and see. And then they talk to the client and say, hey, how did they perform? What did they do? Did they
Oh
they did
wow.
they talk to you about it? Did they ask you a question? We know you on government assistance. Did they ask you about how much you
Mm,
get from government assistance? A lot of the things they already know the answer to, but
right.
then you got to make sure your due diligence because a client can lie because a
Oh
client
they
don't know.
yeah,
They
yeah.
like, look, I ain't got time for this. I ain't got the IRS. Look, they ain't tell me never about no schedule C.
Right.
I ain't know I had no lawn care service. They
Right.
ain't tell me that.
Right.
Knowing you told, knowing the
Right.
taxpayer told you that they had
Right.
all this stuff. So yeah,
Wow.
yeah.
Wow, that's amazing. So this is very very good information, especially for a lot of my agents that I've actually been training on because we go through those due diligence, we go through those scenarios, and we want to make sure that they understand how serious it is. It ain't about just doing. It's about making sure that we actually are in compliance. So that's a very good thing to have. Any last remarks on being able to make sure that you don't have to have pay your fees to be able to get out of trouble?
I know. Well, what I did start was because of these fees, and we're talking about like, and I have to say this, we're talking about $15,000. So that's a criminal investigation fee for me. That's not even going to court. That is
Mm,
just to if you have a criminal investigation as a tax professional, it is $15,000 in my office. before I even start an investigation because I got to pay my investigator, right?
Right. Right.
And my tax attorney. But I have started the Tax Pro Concierge Services. That's what it's called. So it's
Okay.
the highest one is like $697 a month. If
Right.
you get that service, you can actually have a tax attorney, to call, ask these questions if you have questions. Not only that, if you do get an audit or whatever, you have someone to represent you. If you get a criminal investigation, you have somebody represent you. I mean, so and we require like a 6-month commitment, but 6 months
Right.
times 697 is totally different than $15,000. You
It
see what I'm
is.
saying? So,
Right.
but this is the whole. If nobody else gets anything out of this, if okay, so I had 3 criminal investigation cases this week. People calling about them, 3 already, right?
Wow.
And one of them, poor baby, one of them, she was gonna pay, getting ready to pay, and they froze her bank account. So she could not hire. She right this at this point, she got to figure out how she's going to be able to hire a tax attorney or somebody to represent her. Now, if she had already been paying for Tax Pro Concierge services, boom, you ain't got to worry about it. You freeze my account, fine. My tax attorney gonna call you, and we gonna unfreeze it. I already
Right.
got somebody on speed dial, but going and getting that money. That's why I always tell people, let's try to be proactive and not reactive,
And not
because
reactive.
you never
Absolutely.
know. I'm talking about she called me Wednesday and Friday, her bank account was frozen.
Wow.
That just how quick they froze her bank account. And you're talking about somebody who, and we think, we just don't know what happened. At this point, I don't know what happened, but it's like just to have somebody there, it's for comfort to know
Yeah.
that if something happens, I got somebody I can call, because at that point, all she had to do was call the service and say, hey, because what we do is, we have people everywhere, right?
Right.
And tax attorneys everywhere. And so all she had to do was call her tax attorney. This is the person who's been working with you all this time. It's not somebody that's random. It's
Right.
somebody who's been working with you because that's who we assigned you to as a tax attorney. So they know your whole business. They know all this stuff. So they can go in there and say, hey, unfreeze her account so she can do what she needs to do in order to get the service that she needs. But
Right.
that's just something that I'm passionate about. But
Awesome.
people just don't know about it. And I'm trying to put it out there so people can know about it, because you never want to be in a situation where you cannot call a tax attorney or whatever, and or your bank account is frozen and you can't even get the money to pay somebody. And I'm
To
talking
pay
about,
somebody.
I mean,
Yeah.
and to me, I'm cheap. That's cheap.
I
Most
believe
people
you.
want their money as they're going to court. I do it in stages, 15,000, and if you don't go to court, then you're done. But if you
Right.
do go to court, then you got to pay another additional amount of money. But a lot of attorneys want they 30,000, 50,000 up front because they're
Right.
anticipating going to court. So
Mm.
that's just a lot of money to be able to pay somebody. And I know people say, "Oh, I'm not gonna get in trouble," but you just never
Okay.
know.
You just never know. And see, it's the one thing about it. It wasn't. I had got a call from one of those criminal investigation person from the IRS. Somebody had a gun and stuff like that. Because I moved out of Atlanta and moved to Alabama. But I
Mhm.
had somebody up under one of my EFINs that was like a servant, like a person that was doing work up under me. And I found out he was doing something like real malicious or whatever, like sending out false stuff. So I shut it down at that time. And it was back, I think it was back in 2017, 2018. And what saved me it was they said they were gonna come and do an investigation. Well, I wasn't in Atlanta anymore. I didn't have that office. It wasn't me that was actually doing it. And I told them
Mm.
that they kind of put that, took that and they showed her, hey, the EFIN was shut down, things like that. She said, well, we still gonna call somebody else to come and look at what do they call it? A knocking teacher, knocking.
Yeah, the knocking, the see that the warrant is knocking at no answer, something like that. Knocking
It
secret.
was something about that.
Yeah.
It wasn't an audit. They just want to do a training with you to kind of look at your thing and make sure you know. I was like, you're an audit. You better come.
Oh, you ain't coming to you are not coming in my office
Yeah,
doing nothing. If you
exactly.
want to do something,
But
you better give me.
but
You better tell me what you're trying to do. No.
exactly. But the thing that helped me was, that said Donald Trump had shut the country down those 6, 8 weeks or
Oh yeah.
whatever. So they didn't have any time. It was like they couldn't do anything. So at that point, they just left it alone and said, we're not gonna bother you because we don't have the resources to do it. We ain't got the money, all that kind of stuff. So
Wow.
I
You
was like,
okay? Okay.
thank
Okay.
you. Oh,
Thank you, Lord. Right?
yeah, they had shut the government down for those little weeks fighting about, opening and closing the government, and they couldn't do anything. So they left it alone. So like I said, I
It's
just,
just
going to these events and going to conferences, educate myself, and learning not to put nobody on your e that you really don't know like that.
and that's the thing, because people are never going to tell you when they're being investigated.
Right.
People are never going to tell you. It's so not funny. But I had another situation where a client called me and said the service bureau she was under. They asked about that person. That person told them, don't tell them you don't know me. How am I going to tell them I don't know you? My EFIN is PT is under your software.
Yeah.
How in the world? And I will tell the IRS I don't know
I don't
you.
know.
So most likely the service bureau was getting investigated, and the poor baby didn't even know that. And it's
Didn't
like,
even
you
know.
don't know if you've been investigated. Your service bureau don't know. Your franchise owner don't know, because nobody has to tell. So my
Right.
thing is, are we putting in our contracts to make sure if something happens, you have to let us know that you're being investigated? I don't know if
Yep.
service bureaus or franchise owners are putting that in there. I don't know.
Yeah. That be me a thing. You got to make sure you have a investigation clause or something like that, right? Is that what that is?
Yeah. Yeah, you got to
Okay.
make sure you say, like, if you're being investigated, you have to let your service bureau or franchise owner know. Or if the franchise owner or service bureau is getting investigated, you have to let me know as a tax professional that you're being
Right.
investigated, because honestly, they coming after the whole doggone camp if they can.
Yeah. Yeah. They coming after
You see what I'm
everybody.
saying? So yeah,
They coming after
it's definitely serious. So that's something you should put in your contracts, people, is to say that you have to let me know if you're being investigated.
everybody.
Or if you get even if you get a due diligence audit, let me know, because you never
Right.
know what they could help you do.
Right.
Nobody wants to talk about it because it's such a silent thing. Okay, I don't want to talk about it. I got to do diligence. You may not have
Yeah.
done anything wrong. You may have just randomly been chosen.
Right. 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 Yeah. Well, Ms. Josie, I really, really appreciate you taking the time out of your busy schedule to come on
You are
live with me
so
tonight.
welcome.
The audience have been, will see this and they will love every aspect of it. But tell them how to reach out to you, other tax professionals, people that I
Before we
might
do that,
know.
real quick, Donnell, somebody had a question. I don't know if you saw it. It said, so the
Oh,
notes go
I
into
didn't see
the
it.
miscellaneous statement. Did you see that? The notes
Oh,
go into the miscellaneous statement in the software. Yes, it
oh,
does.
okay, yeah, that's Victoria. Victoria, go ahead, go ahead.
Yes, it does. It goes into the yes. Don't put it in a due diligence form. Put it in the notes on a miscellaneous statement in the software, and make sure your software is not transferring those notes onto the 8867. Most software don't do that. They don't transfer them. It's just for your records. But you need those notes if you get audited. So yes, put them there. That's a
Gotcha.
that's a
Yeah.
great point. Yes.
Well, here's
Okay.
another thing. I use a software, a third party software like a CRM system, and we have our
Mhm.
notes in there. We have our accounts in there. We have tracking like the dates people upload their documents, the workflow processes, like all that stuff
Okay.
is under that CRM system. And see,
Yeah.
I know when everybody, when they look at their contract, when they sign a contract, when they sign the engagement letter, when they upload all the stuff, any questions we have, we put them in there. So at any point, I'm like, come look at it. You know what I'm saying? Because everything is like right
Everything
there.
is in there, and everything's timestamp. Everything's
And
documented. So
timestamp.
that's a
Yep.
good thing to
Everything is
have
timestamp.
CRM system. That's a good thing to have a system like that. That you can keep your notes anywhere. It doesn't matter where you keep your notes, as long as you have notes. So when they come in, they can see
Yeah.
the notes that you've asked additional questions if you needed to ask additional questions about certain things. Because it's some things you may not think about to ask. They may not be in the due diligence form. Due diligence, that's
Right.
just the IRS process. You got,
Right.
and then they'll tell you, oh well, just because it wasn't in our form don't mean you didn't need to ask additional questions, but then put it in your form. Yes, they have told my client, just because it's not in our form, you need to ask additional questions, because you are the one who have to verify this person is supposed to get this credit. But anyway, we can talk about this all day, and we will not hold
Wow.
your people up. But you can reach me, because right now I'm promoting Tax Pro Concierge,
Okay.
taxproconcierge.com. It is, the phone number is 888-30 tax pros. That way you can find out about what the different, we call them suites, the different suites we have. And you guys really need to get on this, because I promise you, if you don't have Tax Pro Concierge, when you come to the Walton firm, it's $15,000 just to be able to do
Ooh.
an investigation, and $10,000 for a due diligence audit.
Ooh. You gonna
So it's
pay
a lot,
some money to
and
come see
like I
Josie.
said, I'm cheap. You can talk to any other tax attorney, and they'll tell you it's more than that. So
Right.
I am one of the most reasonable people. because I just love my tax pros. Y'all know how I feel
Right.
about y'all. But yeah,
Well,
so
yeah.
I thank you so much for having me on,
I appreciate you.
Mr. Cheryl. Yes, I thank you so much.
Got you. Well, that's all, guys. So, guys, again, this is Doniel Lovely Financial Services Refund Tax Solution, where we actually make sure that all your financial services needs are met. We come with the best. Miss Josie going to bless us with a lot of information here. So reach out to her. Also reach out to us, refundtaxsolutions.com, to get refund advances, all the things that we have coming up for the upcoming year. All right. With that being said, we're going to be out, and y'all have a good night. Bye.
Bye.